don't get nice things in Minnesota.
Showing.
Give me the jersey number. You might have stumped the Schwab on this one.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
I would have had Jeff. I would have been like JD, Jeff Duke,
Oh, yeah.
Maryland. I would. I mean, because you do it past 1998, I would have been able
You're
to nail
so
it.
full of it. Dugan, while with the Vikings, was more important than Hovan. Then you are crazy.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
You're listening to Steven Strom and Eric Strack on MinnesotaSportsFan.com.
All right, here we go now. On a Tuesday, the 6th day of July, Eric Strack is despondent. He's dejected. He's annoyed. You could just look at him right now. He couldn't figure out to go live here on Twitter, but we're doing our best here. Recording on the audio version. We've got the video still rolling. It's great to have you in here. SS Minnesota. A busy Tuesday with the match. We've got the Euro semifinals in soccer. We've got the NBA final starting tonight. Wimbledon's in full effect. But most importantly, we have a 10th birthday today, and that is to Tatum. And happy birthday to Tatum. There's the smile. Got to get him up a little bit because he's ticked off. First off, Eric Strack, how was your weekend? And happy birthday to your daughter.
Thank you. My weekend was full of celebrations for my daughter and 4th of July and Sam's. My wife, Sam, her family was here for like 4 days, which was just a lot to handle in itself. And now I'm here and we're ready to hit the stream button and have everything get back to normal. And then it doesn't work, of course. So we're not streaming live on any platforms, fully recorded only show, which just irritates the crap out of me just because I put so much fucking effort into figuring out all of this stream stuff that nobody else knows how to do. I'll just point that out, by the way. There's nobody else in like Minnesota
Flex.
internet Twitter sphere or anywhere that has the type of streaming technology that I do. Even the professional of the professionals don't even try and touch the stuff that we use because it takes longer to get to used to and know and everything else. And it's a lot. And so when I put in all that effort to figure it out, because I don't know how to do any of this before I started this website, and then it doesn't work,
Sure.
I just want to fucking throw my computer right through the fucking window. That's what happens when shit like this goes down. So yeah, happy Tuesday, everybody.
Glad your weekend was good.
And I hope everybody's having a better day than me.
All right. That we hope that as well here. We've got some stuff to get into. We've got some Gopher football, really nice piece done by his name is Max Carroll, if I'm not mistaken.
Max
is that his
Carroll,
name? Max
yep,
did a really
author
nice
of mine.
job. Right, on MinnesotaSportsFan.com. That's the website. He's Eric Strack. I'm Steven Strom. And I guess we'll begin there with Gopher football. We'll work our way down to Eric's Twitter fight with Jason Stahl, the professor. We'll do a little wild as well, and we'll try to zoom through this because I've got about 40 minutes left. But without further ado, let's do some of the Gopher depth chart situations. And I guess we'll first start with the quarterback because I did want to say that I've got some points that I want to talk about real quick here. And I first want to start off with Zach Annexstad, who obviously is not the starting quarterback. Tanner Morgan last year, who was sort of disappointing. He was very up and down. I just want to give a quick shout out to Zach Annexstad in a world, in a sports sphere that has been obsessed with the transfer portal. He's really stuck with this program, and it's a real rarity to see now. I mean, a couple of years ago, he had 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 1,200 yards, nothing crazy. But I just got to give props to the kid to like sticking in it, and instead of all these guys that just jump ship and go to another school or they transfer. And he could do that. He could go to a MAC school. He can go to a smaller school and start. He has not done that. So I have to give him some credit there. But we know who the starting quarterback's going to be, and that's going to be Tanner Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, the Gopher offense is going to return a lot like it did last year. Almost everybody returned. Rashad Bateman left, but he's going to be replaced by Chris Ottman-Bell, who proved a lot in his own right last year. I would call Chris Ottman-Bell and one of the best like point of catch receivers in the Big Ten for sure, maybe in the country. I mean, Tanner Morgan did not have a very good season last year, And I bet without some of the catches that Ottman Bell made for him, especially deep down the field, he has even less touchdowns. Chris Ottman Bell is going to be a dude. So he's a guy to watch out for. The rest of the wide receiver group is is very unproven. Tanner Morgan, to go back to the Tanner Morgan, Zach Annexstad piece. Tanner, I don't want to say he's on a short leash this year, but there were a lot of people that were very frustrated with the year that he had last year, and I think for good reason. I don't think the leash is long by any means. The season starts with Ohio State, and that's going to obviously be its own battle in itself, and then we go into the non-conference before we go back into the conference schedule again.
Really quickly, I just want to add on the first 5 games, just Ohio State September 2nd, Miami of Ohio, Colorado at Colorado, home against Bowling Green, and then they start off Big Ten play. I guess you start off against Ohio State, but then they go to Purdue. Those are the first 5 games, which are interesting.
So Ohio State, obviously, Tanner's going to have any size leash. Like, it's going to be long. He's not going to get pulled in that first game. But if Ohio State doesn't go well, and then they lose one of those non-conference games and Tanner Morgan isn't playing well, it wouldn't shock me to see a change. Let's remember that Zach Annexstad was the number 1 quarterback going into the 2019 season, and PJ Fleck hadn't named him the number 1 quarterback yet, but everybody in the know expected it to go that way. The difference between Annexstad and Tanner Morgan is apparent when they stand next to each other. Not as much anymore, but when they were younger, for sure. Zach Annexstad had the better arm. He had the better legs. He's bigger, faster, stronger. He had all of that. Yep, he had all of that on Tanner Morgan. Tanner Morgan's filled out. He's a lot bigger than he used to be. They look a lot more comparable now when standing next to each other. But Annexstad also offers a running ability that Tanner Morgan hasn't really shown or doesn't possess. So I'm not saying it's going to be a quick trigger, but it's definitely something to pay attention to. And the next piece for me would be wide receiver after that. That's going to be the next question.
Yeah, and I want to get into the wide receiver, but I just want to finish up on the quarterbacks because I think that last year would have been fair for Fleck to have a short leash in such a short season last year. And you're really kind of lucky that you have Annexstad still here, and I think there's a reason why he's still here. I think that he doesn't think there's a drop-off. I think he thinks that he's better than Tanner Morgan. You got to think and go back to 2019. That receiving core was unbelievable. I just had Tyler Johnson on my show, Strom Sports Show, last week. But he had Tyler Johnson. He had Rashad Bateman. Chris Ottman Bell was a freshman that year.
Yeah, I don't think he was. I'm not sure if he was a freshman.
Wasn't a huge part.
But he was the third guy.
And I also had Ottman Bell on this year, and I think he's in for a big year. But I think there's a reason why Annexstad is still here, and I think that Fleck has probably had conversations with him and says, hey, look, Tanner did not have a great year last year. We love Tanner. He's really smart. But if Annexstad is still here, that tells me that Fleck has definitely had conversations about him and said, hey, we're still not 100% sold on Morgan. You are a redshirt junior. If somehow, some way, Tanner doesn't get off to a good start, we need to plan for you to be here next year because, just looking at the depth chart, I know you know it better than me, but I'm sure they're still holding out some hope that, hey, Annexstad could step in here and be the guy that we hoped for because he was, like you said, in their plans as the number 1 guy.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually pull up the depth chart here for everybody.
Pull up the article, yeah.
Let me just make sure that we still got... Just want to make sure that we still got sound everywhere, that everybody can still hear us. All right, we're good. All right, so here's the quarterback room, and so I put in bold, and for anybody, because I'm going to put the video version on YouTube later and stuff. So if you want to come and look at these, you can obviously also go and look at Max's article at minnesotasportsfan.com. But if you're looking at the screen right now, Tanner Morgan and Zach Annexstad are like, they're one and two. Like, there is no 3. So you've got to look. If you're Zach Annexstad, really it shouldn't be that difficult for Fleck to talk Annexstad into it for a couple reasons. He becomes the backup to Morgan, who, like we've talked about, doesn't have the longest leash in 2021. So just based off of that, he could find the field. But Tanner Morgan, I mean, this is football, right? Tanner Morgan could get hurt in week 1, just like Zach Annexstad got hurt before week 1 in 2019, and Annexstad could use that platform just like Morgan did to push himself into a conversation where nobody's even being talked about next to him anymore. But the other thing too is because of Zach Annexstad's injuries, Tanner Morgan has another year on him as far as experience eligibility is concerned. So technically, Tanner Morgan could still have another year next year because of COVID last year. I don't expect Tanner Morgan to come back, honestly. I think the conversation, and I could be totally wrong because I was wrong about Mo Ibrahim, but I think that it's more of a just hold your horses a little bit. If Tanner makes it through this season, he's going to the NFL. If Tanner Morgan has a big year again this year, he's not coming back. He's going to the NFL.
No, he's got it. If he has anywhere near, and he's not, I think he peaked in 2019 as I see the numbers, 13 games, 3,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. If he had, I think, the opportunity to go then, he probably went. But he was a sophomore at that time, Eric Strack, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a sophomore, and everybody kind of expected him to kind of take 2020 and then use that as a springboard into the NFL draft. And as you can see, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. It just didn't happen.
Huge part, though, of why he struggled was how awful that offensive line was. I mean, they had an awful offensive line, and when you scroll down, because I want to get into that, because let's be honest, that's predicated on everything, in my opinion. You've got a really good offensive line. Connor Olson, Curtis Dunlap. Dunlap's going to be an NFL guy. And then you get Daniel Falele back, who's like, what is he, like 6'9", 330?
Yep.
This offensive line is in for a huge, huge year. The fact that you have Mohamed Ibrahim back, listen, man, there's no excuse. This offensive line they are bad mothers. And if they can protect Tanner Morgan, I think he has a really nice year. But I don't know if it completely matters who's at quarterback. I'll be honest with you. Between Annexstad and Morgan, I would prefer Morgan. But if this offensive line is able to keep those quarterbacks upright and to give holes for Ibrahim, this is going to be a successful season. They're going to completely bounce back. So much of success in football is based on your front line. I mean, it just is on both sides of the ball. And last year, the Gophers never had that. They never did. I mean, you can go look back on that schedule. They should have beat Maryland. They should have beat certain games. They had lapses. That's not going to happen this year. I think Fleck cleans everything up.
Yeah, and I mean, last year's offensive line and its struggles were, partly due to COVID. Daniel Falele opted out. Curtis Dunlap opted out. And yes, I agree with you. I think if Mohamed Ibrahim has a big year, the Gophers are successful, we could legitimately see a 3 for sure, possibly 4 guys drafted off of this offensive line next season.
And who would they be, Eric?
For sure, Daniel Falele, if he has a big year, is first round, like top 10 talent even. So to give you a little context on Falele, a lot of draft experts thought he should have entered the draft this year, even after opting out last year, and he still would have been a second-round draft pick. Just because he's like 6'9". He is the prototypical left tackle, right tackle that every single NFL team wants. He can dance on his toes, but he's bigger than everybody else on the field. So you start with Daniel Falele when it comes to like NFL talent.
Okay.
But Sam Schluter is another tackle that's a big guy, and he has a lot of that experience
on this line.
That's
These dudes are all senior.
Dude, Connor Olson is a doctor. I'm not even lying to you. He took his MCAT in the offseason. He's a doctor. Wow. John Michael Schmitz was probably like the most undervalued guy heading into last season, but as you can see, like Max, who pays a lot of attention to this stuff, has him starting at center now. Connor Olson was a starter at center for a lot of last year.
He goes at guard.
Blaze Andrews is another guy who you could see go to the NFL. Curtis Dunlap is a guy you probably won't see go to the NFL this year because he's got another year. Let's put it this way. If Dunlap and all these other guys were to all go, I mean, I don't know who would play offensive line next year. Like this is
and if they all go, it's a great sign because we're going to be in a New Year's Day 6 bowl.
Well, and it's not just about the NFL, right? Like Connor Olsen, this is his last year. Michael Schmidt's last year. Blaze Andrews last year. Like those guys can't come back. Same with Schluter. So like it's NFL or go get a real job pretty much for a lot of these guys. And then if Daniel Faalele gets drafted out of that, he's one of the younger guys that, it's like.
Right.
So this year, the combination of Mo Ibrahim and all of this depth and talent and experience on the offensive line should lead to one of the best rushing games in the entire country, just like they had last year. It's going to be up to Tanner Morgan to kind of carry the load, throwing the ball. And then this isn't in here. He's working on it right now. But the defense is, and
that's the biggest question.
That's the biggest question mark.
Yeah, that's the biggest question right now. Offensively, I feel like they're in a good spot, and we'll talk about the wide receiving core right now because that would be the one Achilles heel. You want to call it Achilles heel? One would say Achilles heel. The other would just say, again, unproven. We don't know. We don't know about some of these guys, but we know one is set with Chris Autman-Bell. But one guy that I think we're both and everyone is intrigued in with is Dylan Wright from Texas A&M. 6'4", 210. He's an Under Armour All-American. Did not play at all for Texas A&M. Kind of got in on special teams. But looking at him, he was a four-star guy, number 88 player in the 2019 recruiting class. And this is all I need to know. He chose Texas A&M over the likes of Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas. All blue blood programs that are bigger than Minnesota. So I think that this is a really good recipe for the Gophers. It's again, there's no contract, so I think it's pretty low risk, high reward for a guy that was an All-American. No one has tape on him because he never played. This can be like a rookie coming in that played professionally before, kind of like Kaprizov, like he played in Russia. This guy has been banging with guys at SEC practices. I think it is a fantastic signing and a get for PJ Fleck.
Yeah, so it's Dalen, right? And I only know that.
Dalen.
I only know that.
Okay.
It's spelled Dylan. It's spelled the exact same. I only know that because I asked PJ Fleck a question about Dalen, right? When we were in our last press conference with him, and he corrected me. Dalen, right? Not Dylan, right? So just to make sure we get that right.
Why the Y then? Why the Y?
Yeah,
why the Y? You're confusing
I know.
us.
Why not just
is
throw
like
a
not fair to
D-A-Y
us. We
there.
suck at
Right.
names. We suck at saying names. That really annoys me. It's like this was like a layup for me. Dylan,
Yeah.
right? It couldn't get any easier for me. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Like I've already struggled with Barrios and Kaprizov, and you botch Kaprizov all the time. Dylan Wright, Dylan.
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
a
I
Y.
know.
There's
Yeah,
not an
I
A.
know. That's
Dalen.
the same way
Is it Daylan or
Dalen. Dalen Wright.
Okay, I'm excited about
Yep,
Dalen.
I know. Me too.
Now
So
I'm
I
ticked off.
think.
Now I'm like you with the
So
internet.
yes, Dalen Wright is the most untalked about offensive piece heading into this season. Even PJ Fleck, I feel like, keeps on trying to tamp down expectations because of a little bit what you said. I don't think he wants other teams to really think that this is some big time guy that we're going to bring in and we're going to focus a lot of our offense around him.
Sure.
When you see Dalen Wright on the football field compared to the rest of, we're talking D1 college athletes. Like these guys, like you see them walk next to normal people and they hover over, like that's a football player. Even with basketball players, it's the same thing. They're all so tall that it's like, that's got to be a basketball player. Okay. Dalen Wright makes those football players look like normal people when he's standing around them. Like you can see the difference between, okay, this is what the SEC goes for. This is what the Ohio States of the world go for when they do recruiting. And then the Minnesotas of the world get everything else. Like he he looks massive, and when Gopher fans start to see him compared to other people, like he is whether he gets a huge chunk of the offense or not, PJ Fleck is definitely having him come off the bus first when it comes to all of the wide receivers. He sticks out that much. The only other person I know, like Cam Wiley for the running back group, one of the backup running backs, he's like 6'2" or 6'3", like he is a massive running back. When you see him next to the rest of the running backs, you go, he doesn't look like he belongs there. That's almost how Dalen Wright looks with the wide receivers. And I mean, he sticks out. You can see him, point him out of everybody else in practice. If PJ Fleck can kind of hone and grasp that talent that he obviously has, he could be the biggest story offensively in the Big Ten this year, because the passing game for the Gophers needs him. They need him. They need somebody else to step up. And I think that the easiest path to that happening is with him, because he could open it up. Yes, Crab can go deep, but this guy's 6'4", elite speed. Like, he's the type of classic deep threat you think of. So if you can send him and he becomes a threat that everybody has to watch out for, it completely changes the entire course of this offense.
Right.
But we'll see.
And you could, and you can almost, and I'm not comparing him at all, because Tyler Johnson is one of the greatest wide receivers to ever walk through Minnesota, but statistically at least. But he, I think, can almost replace him in that the possession guy. If he's 6'4", he can be used in a lot of different ways, obviously red zone and throwing fades to him and just using that 6'4" frame to be a possession guy, because that's Tyler Johnson was a deep threat, but he also was a possession guy. He was a guy on 3rd and 8. You were going to him and everyone knew you were going to him. So I'm interested to see how this offense looks, because again, you have a really experienced, dominant offensive line. You've got a hell of a running back. You've got some pieces on the outside, Chris Altman-Bell, but this dude is a wild card. I'm going to start the fan club. I mean, I think that he can be a sleeper, not just for the Gophers. I just think in the state of Minnesota, this can be the next guy that can emerge and maybe take the university by storm. He's recruited like this for a reason. I thank Jimbo Fisher for not playing him. And hey, Kellen Mond's out here. He probably has worked with him. Maybe he can talk to Fleck. We can all be friends here. Fleck, Mond, Dalen.
That's good. Yeah,
everyone's
that's a good idea. I hadn't even thought about that.
Everyone's happy. But just to put a bow on it, Eric, but I wanted to just, again, read the schedule to you guys. Thursday, September 2nd, Ohio State, Miami of Ohio, at Colorado, home against Bowling Green, at Purdue, bye week, home against Nebraska, home against Maryland, at Northwestern, home against Illinois, at Iowa, at Indiana, home against Wisconsin. So sort of like an up and down schedule. But we'll talk about over-unders when it comes out. But put a bow on what you want to talk about as far as the Gophers and Dalen Wright.
Yeah, again, the biggest question mark is going to be on defense. The offense is going to be fine as long as the defense is average in the Big Ten. If the defense can make a comeback, then I think the Gophers will be just fine. And I think PJ Fleck's vision, because PJ Fleck is super excited about this season. Like, it's just such a stark contrast from what I saw last year, when I don't want to accuse him of like wanting to use kind of COVID to kind of push the season off. But PJ Fleck knew that the team he was going to have on the field last year was not going to be what we saw in 2019. And the way he talked to us showed that. In our first interviews with him this year, that tone is 180 different. Like, he is confident. He feels good about the offensive line. He feels good about the changes that they've made on defense. So if there's anything to take away from that, it's just that PJ Fleck definitely thinks he has a better team this year than what he had last year.
All right, and to wrap this up, we've got Jason Stahl, the professor, who basically was the pioneer for the WCCO hit on the Gopher football program. I posted something on Twitter. I had Tyler Johnson on, former Gopher, now current Buccaneer wide receiver. I added him. He responded. Eric threw a grenade like he usually does, runs away. Actually, doesn't run away. He throws the grenades and just stands there and says, okay, what are you going to do?
And then fights all day.
Yeah, and the professor took the high road multiple times, and I told him that we want to have you on, and that's going to happen. I would say either next week or the week after. I've talked to the professor a couple times, and he's traveling a little bit, so he will find a window for Eric and I. I highly suggest you make sure that you check that out because it's going to be very funny.
Yeah, I just when I saw. I didn't even like that WCCO gave this guy a platform. And so when you started talking to him and it became kind of apparent that he might come on here, that was my first thought is like, I don't want to give this guy a platform either. But then I also decided, for one, the clicks. I love the clicks. I can't turn down the clicks. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
But if I am going to like feed into that, then it's not going to be like, and I don't even want to say like WCCO. They were with him. They were hand in hand trying to run PJ Fleck out of town, which we would never do here anyways. But I just wanted to make sure that he knew if he's coming on, this isn't going to be like some, cordial, oh yeah, and then just back and forth. It's like, no, if you're going to come on here, then
tell us about your Substack.
I'm going to try and expose you. That's my goal because I want everybody to see that everything that you didn't have merit, that you're using it to build a platform that you don't have now, and that's what you're trying to use us for too. And I just want everybody to see that side of it. And to his credit, like you said, he didn't run away. He still claims that he will come on here, and that's fine. If he wants to come on here, I'd love to have him on. And I'll take the views, I'll take the clicks, I'll write a blog about it, and we'll see if he can stand the heat. And that's pretty much all I have to say about Jason Stahl.
We've already had one guy that said he was going to come on and then backed out because he just hates Eric. Let's see if we can actually get this one to come on.
I'll say this because I like to think of myself as a stand-up guy who at least is honest when it comes to this sort of thing. I'll say this about Brandon Warren, all right? After the whole thing with Brandon Warren, he did reach out and say that he would come on with me, just him and me. And we planned for it, and I told him that it would just be him and me and that we would do it the week after everything went down. And then crap just got busy, and I never reached back out to him. So Brandon Warren did agree to come on with me when you weren't there, and I have another show.
Are you cheating on me? You're cheating.
I have another show called On the Internet Live where I haven't done it in like a month, but it's me and I bring on random people that other ones would know who they are, people in Minnesota media for the most part. And he agreed to come on that with me, and he and I to battle it out. And then it just never came to fruition. So I'll at least give Brandon Warren that he didn't run scared necessarily.
All right, let's do a little Minnesota Wild here. Kirill Kaprizov and the Wild are in talks right now. Some people say it went cold. Some guys are reporting. And there's only one guy that I trust during all of this, and that's Michael Russo, who is on the TalkNorth.com podcast network. I guess my coworker, if I want to call it that, if I really want to pump my chest. No. But he's been on it. He has reported this a couple of times that Bill Guerin and his agent, who is the agent of Arturi Panarin. It's got to be a tough guy to sell on because he got Panarin a lot of money. I don't know, man. This is obviously there is some shadow of doubt because this is Minnesota, and I hate using that. I know that Kaprizov is looking for 8 years. I know Guerin doesn't want that. I was texting with Russo, and they want it sort of at 5. You're not going to sign him to, I don't think, less than 4 years. I don't think it makes a lot of sense here, but there is a little bit of anxiety, I think, with this because it's like, hey, we finally got this guy. No, wait, can you not go to Russia and go on a fishing trip without a phone or service? We want to figure this out. Where are you at with all of this, man?
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous. Billy Guerin makes me feel a little bit better just because he was a guy like leading into Kaprizov coming here where he's like, don't worry, everybody chill out. He's coming. And eventually he did. And here we are. So Billy G being a little bit like in that same mode where it's kind of, don't worry, we'll get it done. It just might take a little bit longer than some of these other guys, but we'll get it done. Makes me feel a little bit better. Obviously, the biggest concern for me, I would love to sign Kaprizov to an $8-10 million or 10-year deal like the Wild want to do, but it's probably not going to happen. I just don't want to walk him into unrestricted free agency. Like, I don't want to have him for 2 years and now he's gone. So for me, it's just every year that they can tack on is happier that Wild fans will be. If he gets it 5 or more, great. If he gets it to 6 or more, ecstatic. If he were to get him to 8, then let's build Billy Guerin Street right now. But if it comes back and it's 2, 3, some sort of bridge deal, I'm not saying, obviously, Billy Guerin isn't on the hot seat or anything like that, but that's a definite fail in his negotiating history that he couldn't get Kaprizov onto a longer deal than essentially something that walked him into unrestricted free agency.
And there's a lot going for Kaprizov leverage-wise. Number one, he led the team in goals. Looking at his year, I mean, obviously there was a shorter amount of games. There's a really good point about some of the teams they played. They played in a terrible, terrible conference. Phoenix, the Kings, those teams are terrible. But there's no excuse for, that Kaprizov late in games is a game changer. I mean, the amount of clutch goals that he scored, or anytime he was on the ice, you felt like there was a chance that something was going to go in. This is the time, this is where you would use your leverage. You coming off the year that he's had. He's a Calder winner. He's come in, hears me that it's Panarin's agent. This is going to be tough, man. I think this is going to be really tough. I think Kaprizov and his agent are going to stand their ground, but I also think the Wild are going to stand their ground as well. The leverage is easily towards Kaprizov because I think this team is instantly not as scary without Kaprizov. I don't care how many years you signed Eriksson Ek to. This team is special with Kaprizov. I know they only pushed Vegas to 7, but we know that moving forward, this is a team we expect to contend for a while, and a massive piece to that puzzle is Kaprizov. And it is worrisome for me, man. I don't know where to go. You don't want to give him that 10-year deal like you sort of did with Parise and Suter, and I know that it's different guys, and I know that they're different players, but Billy Guerin doesn't want to do that. The Wild don't want to do that. But that is what Kaprizov wants. He wants 8 years. He wants that security. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just kind of wait and see. And I don't know. I think it'll work out okay. I think that Billy's done a great job of kind of getting the band back together and getting a lot of his pieces signed. I'm interested to see what they do with Fiala. Do they end up trading him? Do they end up signing him? I read Russo kind of released a new article this morning that was kind of like a survey. Like, he surveyed fans on a bunch of different hot button topics and kind of, should we trade for Eichel? Should we trade for this? Should we give up this much in a trade? And I thought that was intriguing, but it also listed a lot of dates. Like, the month of July is like NHL heaven this year. You have the expansion draft in July. You have free agency in July. You have the regular draft in July. Like, the next month in the NHL is jam-packed. Like, they're going to take up a lot of news in the news cycle in the sports world. And so it's just a big month for Billy Guerin and the Wild. I mean, they're going to be in a much different place right now as far as knowing what they have for 2021 than 1 month from today. Like, on August 1st, it's going to be we're going to be looking at a completely different reality. The draft will be over. The expansion draft will be over. Free agency, the biggest parts of free agency will be over. They're just going to be, what happens between now and August 1st is really going to shape the Wild, not just for this year, but for the next handful of years. So I'm intrigued.
Salary cap also goes up as well. Don't think that the agent isn't thinking that as well. This is SS Minnesota. He's Eric Strack. I'm Steven Strom. We got about 10 more minutes left here. Do we want to do Eriksson Ek really quickly and just talk about him? Sure. Or I thought this was a really nice deal for both sides. Eriksson Ek, 24 years old. His contract runs through I think it's 8 years,
8
or
years,
is it
yep.
6?
It's
It's 8
yep.
years. So
8 years,
at
42
about
million or something.
5.2, 5.3 million. Erickson Neck, there was always this running thing about him, is everyone believed in Erickson Neck and everyone believed that he would become this, except from Joel Erickson Neck. And finally this year he's coming off a career high in goals. It's very hard to find centermen, just centermen in general, decent centermen. Is he ready to be a top 6 guy, Eric Streck? I don't know that. I don't know if I'm trusting him in a Western semis against Nathan McKinnon and in the Avalanche. But again, it's a very scarce position, and it's very much like an offensive line in football. And when you get a good one, you've got to keep them. So for this deal, I liked it for both sides. I like the length of it. I know some people are like, 8 years. Why 8 years? He's 24 years old. He's very young. I think that at 32 years old, you still feel comfortable with certain guys. I mean, you know, some guys play for a very long time. Some guys might flail out a little bit. But as far as Joel Eriksson Ek, I think the biggest thing about this, the most comfortable thing about this is I know that Joel Eriksson Ek isn't the type of guy where he gets his money and his mentality changes, and he's not gonna keep working his ass off. Joel Eriksson Ek is a very nose to the grindstone kind of kid, and I don't think that any of it changes as far as financials and his work ethic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if the Wild get that top line obvious center, excuse me, if they get that top guy, that number one center that they want, then I think this looks great, because now you have that grinded out defensive guy gonna kill penalties. You're gonna be able to face him against some of the top line forwards in the game, and you're gonna be able to trust that he's not gonna screw it up. He needs to get better in the faceoff circle, but other than that, that's really all that. What you ask him to do, kill penalties, play defense, that type of center, if he could get better in the faceoff circle, he's like a Mikko Koivu on steroids almost. Like he is that type of player.
A little bit more skilled.
He is that type of centerman when we look at it. But if you don't get that top line center, now you find yourself, like the Wild did this year, asking Joel Eriksson Ek to do things that don't benefit or don't really show off what he's good at. You're asking him to, center lines that have top scorers on it instead of worrying about playing both offense and defense at his best ability. Like, you just start to get into doing things that isn't necessarily there. Now you're paying him. You're not paying him to be a third line centerman anymore. So I would hope that he lands somewhere like on the second line. If they could move that whole lineup, he played so well with Greenway and Foligno. If they could take that line and just push them up to number 2 instead of being that grinded out number 3 line, that could be something that could make Eriksson Ek evolve even more.
Yeah.
I think it's a good move. I don't mind the time frame, like you said. He's not somebody who's not going to work now or anything like that. But to complement what he does, you still have to get that number 1 center. And Russo has made it clear that the number 1 center thing is on Kaprizov's mind too. That's a part of this whole thing, that Kaprizov is
he was
that
playing with
center.
Victor Rask, and he put up those numbers.
Exactly.
He put up those numbers with Victor Rask. And just to add on to Eriksson Ek, I thought he was, next to Cam Talbot, the most impressive guys that came out of the postseason. I thought Talbot and Eriksson Ek had the best playoffs for the Wild.
Agreed. Agree with that 100%.
All right, let's get the imaging here for the random Minnesota athlete. We'll wrap this up here. 6 minutes left. It's a tough one, Eric Strack. I'll let you grab the audio. You let me know when you got it. Just shut my yapper and let it roll.
All right, here we go.
It's time for Steve and Eric to name that random Minnesota athlete.
What the hell's going on out here?
Good luck.
All right, Eric Strack. These last couple of weeks, we've went back and forth. When we get it really easily, we sit there and we say oh man, that was too easy. What are we doing? And then when we don't, we're like, what are we doing? I'm just gonna, I'm not overthinking this anymore. I know that this is a tough one. I get that, and I don't expect you to get this. And if you get it after the first try, then I'm gonna say that's freaking pretty damn impressive. That's what I'm gonna walk away saying.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So I know we usually do professional, but I wanted to mix it up. I wanted to go little Minnesota basketball with Marcus Carr. Huh? How about him withdrawing? Maybe he comes back, gets me in the mood a little bit. We're gonna throw this thing back to 2011. This random Minnesota athlete is from Hopkins, Minnesota. Played for the Gophers from 2011 to 2013. I don't want to give that away yet. He was a top 100 ESPN recruit, and he played under Tubby Smith. Eric Strack, who is this random Minnesota athlete? I don't hear the green onions in the background.
They're there. They're there.
Okay.
I can turn it up a little bit for you.
There you go. Thank you.
Why can't I get this?
And I have a plan too.
Amir Coffee keeps on coming into my mind, but that's obviously not
Hopkins,
right.
Yeah,
I can't get that. I can't get that out of my head for whatever reasons. Who came from Hopkins before he did? And not just like before, but like recently before he did.
Yeah, 2011. I was a huge Gopher guy growing up. Huge Gopher guy. I'll give you the number of his jersey if that helps.
Sure.
11. He also transferred in 2014 and played for St. Mary's 2014 and 2015. He was Mr. Basketball in the state of Minnesota in 2011. With the injury of Mo Walker,
this name and I'm gonna know it for sure. I don't know what's
easily.
going on.
With the injury of Mo Walker and loss of senior Al Nolan, Coach Tubby Smith was looking for a new recruit to fill the empty spots. He recruited this man to play for the Minnesota Gophers.
I don't have a name coming to my mind. You stumped me, which is kind of depressing because I just can't believe that you got to go for basketball. But Gopher basketball is my favorite. That goes back to 1997, watching Bobby Jackson. It goes Gopher basketball, Vikings. Like if I could pick teams to win it all, I would put Gopher basketball ahead of the Vikings. 2011, I will say, was a difficult time for me. If you would have picked any time, 2011 was when my daughter was being born. I was living in Illinois. I wasn't even living in Minnesota at that time. But I'm still surprised that I can't get it. But yeah, I don't.
Initials is JC. We just done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Joe Coleman.
Joel Coleman.
Remember Joe Coleman?
I do remember Joe Coleman now that you say it, but he's not even now. Like he's not. It's not as much of a how did I not get that moment as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Because what did he end up doing? Did he end up doing what was it like? I wonder what. Because I just feel like a top recruit comes in, plays here for 3 years. If he would have went off and like that, we would have. There's no way that I don't know who this guy
that's
is.
What makes it easy.
I know,
Blake
but that's
Hoffar,
I know, I agree, but that's part like your clues made me feel like it should be that type of guy because it's like player of the year in Minnesota, like top recruit, like all these things. I'm like, how do I not know this guy? But obviously Joel Coleman rings a bell, but he didn't go and do great things here. I'd be really interested.
He didn't. His highest was like averaging 8 points a game.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Still, well, you got me, Joel Coleman.
Can you next week? I want to go for basketball, please.
All right, I'll do go for basketball for you next week.
From 2011 and up, please. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, Eric Strack, you can wrap this thing up. Good job on the Miranda, Minnesota athlete.
Yeah, I suck. All right. Yeah, he's Steven Strom. I'm Eric Strack. I'm gonna go and try and turn my day around here. MinnesotaSportsFan.com. Until next week, go to the website. See us there. See ya.
Peace.